Right. There it is. There's the gavel. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the meeting of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority Board of Directors to order. It's 6:30. Well,
Director Kenneth,
Here.
Director Flahart,
Here.
Director Chapman, here, Director Annabelle,
here.
Director Alexander, here, Director Potter is absent, Director Gill.
Here.
All right. So at this time, are there any members of the public that want to have an opportunity to address the board on any item not on the agenda? Speakers are limited to 3 minutes.
If any of our guests joining us via Zoom would like to comment on any matter not on the agenda, please raise your hand.
There's no public comment. We are going to take one item out of order, because we do have a guest, so we're going to go right to new business, which is the approval of a resolution honoring Dr. Stu Weiss for outstanding contributions to Santa Clara Valley. And Aaron.
Great. Well, Aaron Aber, Natural Resources Manager, and it is my distinct pleasure and honor to present this resolution on behalf of the organization to Dr. Stu Weiss. Stu, as many of you know him, has done a lot for Santa Clara Valley and specifically for Coyote Ridge and the areas that we work. I'll say he is a world expert, bay checker spot butterfly knowledge, so much knowledge in that area. He's been doing it for a long time, which is particularly meaningful in conservation biology. I think in modern life, a lot of us move around quite a bit, but actually staying in place and loving a place is a big deal. His work on nitrogen deposition and the indirects and direct effects of, development on our beloved habitats is really groundbreaking and has affected, I think, regional conservation science. In addition to the work he does down here, he's quite involved in mission blue butterflies, monarchs, and a number of rare plants, too many to list. On a personal level, his curiosity, interest, and pragmatism have really done a lot for land management. Stu is not just a great scientist, but is actually a great advisor to us land managers. And that bridge is a really big deal. He does this with great humor, and he has that sort of unmistakable love of beauty in the outdoors. And so Stu has just done a tremendous amount of work making science accessible and interesting, which is also really important. It's not enough to, study butterflies as Stu has, but to actually get that out there into the world is a tremendous accomplishment. So perhaps before I read the resolution, I'll let our general manager say a few words.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for being here tonight, Stu. I'm sure my colleagues have some words that they would like to say as well. But I would just like to say that Coyote Ridge wouldn't be in permanent protection, nor dare I say Coyote Valley and the connection from the Coyote Ridge and the Diablo Range to the Santa Cruz Mountains without the science underpinnings which raise the red flags that this was a highly threatened landscape. And really one of the most biodiverse landscapes in Santa Clara County, if not the region. To hear Stu tell the story of how conservation came to be is very well told in a recent film that's actually featured on our website. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's called Diablo Range Revealed. And it was a partnership with Save Mount Diablo. And Stu is the featured celebrity on that film. But this is really the story of conservation, and it really is about people and people willing to put their heart and soul and stand up for something larger than themselves, knowing that kind of legacy will really change the world. I haven't known Stu as long as a lot of people in the San Francisco Bay Area, but from the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank Stu. Thank you for caring. Thank you for sharing your passion Thank you for stepping outside of the academics and applying it to the land and being willing to rally people to protect this endangered landscape. And future generations will celebrate what Stu Weiss and those that followed him have done. So I'm greatly honored that we're giving this resolution to Stu tonight. And Matt, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I'd love to. Stu, it's such a privilege and an honor to recognize your conservation legacy. Aaron mentioned your groundbreaking work on nitrogen deposition and just connecting the dots, you know, that was really the foundation for what became the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Conservation Plan, Natural Communities Conservation Plan. And, you know, think about all the work we've done in partnership with that agency, and amazing conservation work to come. And then related, you know, in addition to that, amazing subject focus and that expertise there as the chief scientist behind the Conservation Lands Network. I think that's another profound legacy that is going to have tremendous impact. You think about the San Francisco Bay region as a biodiversity hotspot within California, which is a biodiversity hotspot on the globe. And, you know, your work with Tom Robinson and Ryan and others really is truly groundbreaking, right? And one of the keys to actually implementing 30 by 30, because you've got a roadmap how we can do that, you know, within now 10 county Bay Area. So there's so many others, but I just really wanted to acknowledge your major contributions and inspiration to the whole generation of conservation planners, including myself. And really looking forward to working with you, sir, on CLN 3.0. Yeah, that's great. And then beyond 30 by 30, cheers, man, to 50 by 50. Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, I don't know how much I can add to what's already been said, but Stu, in public affairs, you know, we very much honor you as well, because we're always using your talking points and just talking about, hey, the guy who comes to events with his butterfly net, you'll recognize him in an instant. Don't miss him. So you bring a lot of fun to the work as well as all of the knowledge, but the talking points and the story that we have from your work, we use over and over and over again, whether we're giving a tour to members of our legislature or local elected officials, or working it into the stories that we have in our newsletter and social media. We're always telling your story, and we really appreciate the work and the heart that you put into it over the years.
17 years, Stu. That's how long it's been since I first met you up on Coyote Ridge. And it's been wonderful. I want to thank you for all of the time that you spent with our staff here throughout the years, teaching them. I remember our first conversation about nitrogen deposition sitting down by Kirby Canyon landfill. I had no idea what the hell you were talking about at the moment, but I've since learned a lot about it. I really appreciate your willingness to always try something new and look at different techniques and always being open. You were never closed to ideas. You were never closed to oh, I know it all and I'm going to do it this way. And you listen to rookies in the field and listen to different thoughts and apply them. So just want to say thanks for all you've done for me personally, and then for all of our staff here at the Open Space Authority and all the volunteers that you've helped educate them about such a resource that we have up there. So thank you very much.
I was gonna say, did we want to invite Stu to say a few words?
Sure.
So I was here when the Open Space Authority was born. I forget the exact year, but came onto the scene and was immediately under attack by lawsuits. And it was quite a long process to get out from under that. I remember when it was Lloyd Wagstaff and Rachel Santos, I believe, were the two staff members. And then Pat Congdon took over, and still the lawsuits were hanging over. Finally, that got cleared out, and Andrea came in, and it's what an opportunity. So, it's just been a pleasure to spend decades up on Coyote Ridge. It's just one of those beautiful places on the planet. And then to share it with, this board. I remember, I think I took Alex up there in like 2000 or 2000, yeah, talking a long time ago. We had Operation Flower Power, where we brought the powers to the flowers by inviting every elected official in Santa Clara County. Come on a tour with us. And that eventually morphed into a docent program via which was then the Silicon Valley Land Conservancy. And then that morphed into your docent program. So it's just great to see that the ideas and the stories kind of getting out there, and then everybody adding their own unique twist. So I'm deeply honored by this, just being lucky and privileged to be in this position to do this, and then to get the recognition and realize we have the whole future ahead of us. And each piece in the mosaic is getting filled in, and thinking about like how the Valley Habitat Plan is providing the resources for you guys to be the land managers across much of the ridge and other lands. That's really important, to be building that capacity so that, Derek has the tools he needs and the science he needs to do it right, and Aaron. So I don't know, this is like, it's kind of like you're almost like a family in some ways. And I just feel really honored. Thank you.
I hope you weren't expecting those.
I'll read this resolution honoring Stu into the record. Resolution of the Governing Board of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority honoring Dr. Stu Weiss for his contributions to conservation science and the protection of the Santa Clara Valley. Whereas Dr. Stu Weiss started studying bay checker spot butterflies and serpentine grasslands in 1979 and has been working on Coyote Ridge since 1984. And whereas his dissertation, Weather, Landscape Structure, and the Population Ecology of a Threatened Butterfly, was completed in 1996 under Professor Paul Ehrlich and established some of the foundational science for the bay checker spot butterfly. And whereas the Journal of Conservation Biology published Dr. Weiss's groundbreaking work, Cars, Cows, and Checker Spot Butterflies in 1999. And whereas Dr. Weiss's research led to the creation of the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Plan, and whereas Dr. Weiss founded Creekside Science Center for Earth Observation in 2006, whereas Creekside Science has made significant contributions to bay checker spot conservation, mitigating the effects of atmospheric nitrogen deposition, large-scale conservation planning, providing scientific advice for the Conservation Lands Network, monarch habitat restoration, and more. And whereas Dr. Weiss has made invaluable contributions to the authority, whereas Dr. Weiss has made unique and profound contributions to the Santa Clara Valley and the San Francisco Bay Area bioregion. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors honors Dr. Stu Weiss for his service to the Open Space Authority and the San Francisco Bay bioregion. So with that,
A lot of whereas. Oh, wow.
so this is I'll speak into the mic, but this is a Derek Newman original from Coyote Ridge. We have lots of great landscape shots of the ridge, but I think being up close in the flowers honors Dr. Weiss's work and his love of beauty. And then on the back, a few of us have signed the back, and the clerk will help us sign this resolution so you can take it home with you tonight.
Wow, these clouds are like my hair used to be.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak?
Are there any members joining us via Zoom who would like to speak on this item? Caller, it looks like you're trying to speak, but I can't hear you. Caller, if you want to disconnect and then try calling back in, it's not, we can't hear you.
No meetings.
Love technology.
Can you try speaking again?
Oh, here we go. Hold on. Maybe. No. Mm-hmm. As loud as it can be everywhere. I got it.
Caller, can you speak again?
If there's any, while we're waiting to maybe work out the technological issues, already start on this side. Anybody from the board that would like to make a comment? Dr. Gills?
Want to say thank you, and then whatever the work he did is really a great work, and then it's our privilege and we are honored to give him a resolution or the reward for his work. Thank you.
I can't add anything meaningful to the things that have already been said, but I would like to add my thanks to join everyone else's. Thank you very much.
Well, I can remember meeting you the first time out of the Ridge, and your joy, excitement, exuberance was absolutely and still is contagious. And I do attribute the fact that we have preserved it to your strength and leadership and dedication to make this a reality for all of us, because I think it really took that, because a lot of people just drive by and they see it, but they are never tempted off to it. And now that we have.
And they leave a little more nitrogen.
Right, right. And now that
They're
we have
driving
our
the
great-
electric.
we have our great staging area, I'm sure that when spring comes, there won't be any parking spots. So thank you very, very much for your many, many years of dedication.
Thank you. Vern Smith introduced us years ago, and he's the first person I had talk about your work and make me interested in what you're doing. Part of the reason why I'm here, as well as Ridge Trail stuff. Thank you.
Remember our tour and how exuberant you were about everything you saw. A lot from it, and I put on what you're gonna receive. Basically, thank you for making us who we are. Letting us continue to do so. Love to you in the future.
To close out the thanks, and along with my colleagues, to say that I think there's constituents, I mean, you don't know this, but I also have a double job where I represent the council member for District 2, and I think bringing people out here, we have no idea what lasting impact we've left on constituents and young children and future generations. I mean, that speaks volumes. You're a hero. I mean, you know, that's the way I look at it, because some of that work is not rewarded, but it's rewarded in the fact that you've got this preserved and you've got everybody that's going to be able to go up there and the pleasure in it.
We're gonna beg off hero, because there are like real heroes out there who risk life and to protect Mother Earth. I'm getting paid to chase butterflies. So I like to substitute mensch.
Mensch, okay.
It's just somebody trying to do the right thing.
Okay, all right, duly substituted. Okay. Yeah, were we able to get the caller online?
Caller, can you try speaking again? We're having a really hard time hearing you. Are you speaking into your phone or your mic?
Mhm.
Well, thank you. We had a really hard time. I hope you can hear us. We had a really time hearing you, but maybe Stu, this is one of your greatest fans that, you know.
Mystery fan.
The mystery fan. But again, thank you from all of us on behalf of the board. Congratulations and well-deserved honor.
Thank you all very much. And we'll keep moving forward.
Exactly. There's still plenty of work to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we will go back to,
Madam Chair, excuse me a minute. Are we taking a pause to sign the resolution now?
We can make a motion to approve.
that's right, here we go. Thank you. Okay, that,
I'd
we're
like
all
to
in
move,
awe. No one's making a motion.
I'd like to move to approve.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve from Director Kennett and a second from Director Gill.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Annabelle. Yes. Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously, and now I believe we will sign the resolution, and then we will adjourn to closed session.
Now, let's get a tour together for next April. Sounds good. We'll get to go places other people don't.
Right, so while they're doing that, now we will call. So I'm making an announcement regarding the items to be discussed in closed session will be made prior to closed session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have one item in closed session tonight. It's conference with real property negotiator and details.
All right, with that, let's adjourn to closed session.
Well, you know, everything takes way more time than. Oh, wow. Wow.
Hey, Andrea, can we get your photo?
And then. Stand right there. Beautiful picture here. I think I know that rock.
Probably around.
I think I know like every rock up there.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
All right. All right, we're back. So is there any report from closed session?
No report, Madam Chair.
All right, so now we are on to approval of minutes.
I'll approve the first. Result.
There's a motion by Director Kenneth to approve the October 12th. Wait, you guys are flipping, okay, here. Sorry, that was me. I'm like, let me hit the button on the thing. Okay, so we have a Director Kenneth, motion to approve the October 12th minutes. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, second by Director Alexander. All right, any public comment? Okay, all right.
Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Annapole,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion to approve October 12th minutes passes unanimously. Now we're on to the October 12th special meeting minutes.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Director Animal with a second by Director Fokker. Roll.
Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Annapole,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
I forgot to call public comment, but I assume there's no public comment. All right, that motion to approve the special meeting minutes approved unanimously. All right, we are on approval of the consent calendar. Is there anybody wishing to pull an item off the consent calendar, or any member of the public that wants to speak to any item on the consent calendar?
I'll motion to approve the calendar show.
Second.
Have a motion to approve consent items 1 through 3 by Director Kenneth with a second by Director Gill.
Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Annapole, Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to approve the consent calendar passes unanimously. Okay. Now we have done item 1 on new business. So now we have an information item. Presentation on field operations and accomplishments for the 2023 fiscal year and first quarter of the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Derek, thank you.
Good evening, directors. It is my honor to provide an update for the past 15 months for the field operations department. It's basically covering the fiscal year 22-23 and the first quarter of 2023-24 or 23-24. This period has been a time of growth in both responsibilities and in staffing to meet those additional responsibilities. And visitorship has remained strong since the early stages of the pandemic, resulting in staff deployment to help manage the flow of our visitors into the preserves at the staging areas on the weekends. This is to greet the visitors as they enter the preserves. The peak of the season was 2020. As the pandemic hit, we saw visitorship really rise up, almost quadrupling the numbers of visitors to all of our preserves. Since then, the numbers have come down, but the upward trend has always been consistent from year over year. So if you take out the anomaly of 2020, we still have that graph going up almost on a 45-degree angle for it. In addition, the addition of Mayano Yakima Coyote Ridge and operating the habitat protection area there, this is what we would call a high-touch preserve. And what does that mean? It means that staff are there 7 days a week to provide visitor contact, to greet them at the preserve, ensure that they have their butterfly pass available for access to the habitat protection areas, and also to inform visitors that that area is closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, that they can only hike for 5 days up on the ridge itself. This is to protect the habitat. Also, we have volunteers on the weekends to assist in providing that pass to visitors who do not have it. So far, our data suggests that most people are accessing the pass prior to arriving on the ridge. Almost 70% of the people arriving have the pass already on them.
Only 30% needed to get it there, which the greeter can give them the QR code to access it. Or if they need more time, they can go over to the volunteer booth and access it there. In addition, signage also has a QR code on it, allowing visitors to access the pass from any of our signages that are out there. All of these QR codes are unique, so it allows us to track how people are accessing the pass. And it tells us whether we're getting them from the website, whether we're getting them from social media, or whether we're getting them from signage, or even the greeter, that's an open space tech staff, or the volunteers at the booth. We can basically gather that information, understand how we're reaching our visitors that are out there. Routine trail patrols to provide that extra level of care out there as well, and to also gather data. Our natural resource manager, Aaron Hebert, has come up with a really cool modeling system of collecting data that allows us to understand what's happening on the preserve and the ridge and how our public is interacting with the resource so that we can have adaptive management in the future as we see if there are problems that are occurring out on the ridge itself. Field staff and volunteers have risen to this occasion, gathering data to assist in that future visitor management planning. Only 3 incidents so far since we've opened the preserve back in August. We have observed people off trail. So we have done a really excellent job through Mark's team in public affairs of putting it on the website, getting the messaging out there, and from the butterfly pass, and then from our staff engaging with people. One of those 3, unfortunately, is CAL FIRE, who we continue to have problems with. They think they own everything and anything within the county. So we continue to work with the battalion chiefs at our local district down here in Morgan Hill, but we still have a lot of problems with the local captains who don't feel like they always need to listen to their battalion chief, but we are working on that. Another one that's really grown is the sunsets at Sierra Vista. This has continued to be a popular South Bay attraction. We get people from a lot of the area over to come up and visit the Sierra Vista preserves. That's required staff adjustments to manage that. We've also went to an adaptive management where we close the gate to the preserve basically an hour before close, which is half an hour before sunset. So if you want to come up to view the sunset, you need to be on the property half an hour before the actual sunset. This allows our staff to, inform people, sorry, the parking lot's closed, you're going to turn around, you need to leave. This has helped with the flow up there. Staff continually still get negative interactions with people who it's all about me. So we are looking at, and that actually comes up in a presentation a little bit later about what we can do in the future with the visitor management system that I'll be discussing a little bit later. The consequences of not managing the lot really are, though, visitor conflicts, which we were seeing before we went and took this kind of approach. There were a lot of people waiting in the parking lot to get a site, and they were getting aggressive with people who were taking their time to get back to their car that looked like they were going to leave. Some people we were observing were doing the whole head fake, like walking to a car and then walking back onto the preserve to make people irritated that they thought they were going to be backing up and leaving that spot for them. So this has really allowed us to reduce the visitor to visitor conflict, but it really hasn't addressed the visitor to staff conflict that we still have out there. It also was backing up traffic onto Sierra Road. As Director Flaher knows, that was one big issue for the residents up there, and also provided for a very unsafe area because the trail crosses right there, and with vehicles parked there and also backed up on the road, your sight lines were severely impacted for people walking between the parking lot and our Aquila Trail. These are some of the challenges our program staff work through each and every day to ensure our visitors have a safe and welcome place to recreate and enjoy nature. Throughout the past 15 months, program staff have worked on numerous other projects, such as the construction of the new trail at Mayan Yakima. That was about 2 miles of trail that they constructed, both on the south and the north, and not always the greatest of conditions. We had a lot of rain last year, so that really put a damper, no pun intended there, on our ability to complete that early. Vegetation control projects throughout our lands, primarily for invasive plant control, working with the Natural Resource Department and David Mock out there to get a lot of our invasive plant populations under control and continue those areas that we've already have controlled before, as well as fuel reduction program. That's generally vegetation management along roads and trails to provide for either safe access for responding fire personnel and or to prevent fire from jumping from potentially a road such as Sierra Road onto our properties, giving it time to where we can respond and get that out before it jumps into the much larger wildlands. Trash cleanup and a host of other projects. Often staff work with volunteers. I really want to give a shout out to the volunteer department. They really step up and help and assist our staff in everything that we do out there. And they've really augmented our ability to get things done. This winter of 23 saw an unusually wet year. It really did impact the construction in Mayan and Yakima. There were many delays in being able to work due to the poor soil conditions and access constraints. This also really impacted the California Conservation Corps. It would seem like every time we scheduled them, it would rain. And this was scheduled 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So we would end up putting multiple dates on the books. And most of the time, the multiple dates also got rain. And it was always dry in between those dates. So we got really creative with them, and they were really great to work with, where they would actually come back even on those dates that we didn't have them scheduled when it was dry. And that actually worked better. So we could almost count on rain every time we scheduled the California Conservation Corps out there. We also, Megan and Andres had a lot of storm damage that they ended up having to do out there. Primarily what we saw 2 different destructions on our trails. Over at Bacardo Trail, we had a slide that came down to. This is a slide area that is normally active during heavy events like this. The FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Authority, they do not pay for proactive repairs on this. So the repair that would fix this in perpetuity or as much as we can would be over $2 or $3 million. So it's not something that we can actively look at to do on our own, and we cannot get that kind of funding from FEMA. What we do though is get FEMA money to help us repair that. So that was a slide on Sierra Vista. The other damage that we had was Catamount, where we had what's called a slip out, and that's where the road surface actually slipped out from underneath it, which will be, both of these repairs will be affected in the spring of this year coming up. We have 18 months to affect the repairs. We're well within that time frame, and we'll have those done in time to get reimbursed for this. And this is about $50,000 to $60,000 that will be getting reimbursed, and that's also staff time, not just equipment rental, but it's also staff. Bulk of the work though was done by Megan and Andres's teams, which were down trees, debris removal, and removing hazards that were blocking up Yagas Creek and other such waterfront streams there. They spent hundreds of hours out there during the storms, after the storms, and then much after the storms, affecting the final cleanup. Generally, they will hit the area first, open it back up to public access, such as Casaloma Road. They'll cut through the tree, restore public access, vehicle access on the trails, open up that trail access. And then once the conditions are drier and more conducive, they'll go back and they'll do the finish work on it, which is sometimes months later. And they were doing that up into, I think, June. And again, that was all reimbursed by FEMA. We ended up getting funding back for that. In addition, we lost 2 vehicles, or 1 vehicle during these storms, where an oak tree actually came down on the parked vehicle. And then we also had a vehicle that was parked on Alum Rock Falls Road that didn't secure. It was hit by falling rocks from up above on Alum Rock Falls Road. Both of those were also covered by insurance, and anything that wasn't covered by insurance was covered by FEMA as well. Through all this, change and adoption is necessary for the continued growth and safety, and we saw that. Over the past 15 months, program staff have worked to improve the safety of our facilities, assist in the care for our natural resources, and meet the need to move to more eco-friendly tools. We've included improvements at Tilton, which was upgrading the electrical system out there. This was former Janet Burbach's ranch, and they had people that were electricians or whatnot, and they did a lot of work that was not necessarily permitted and or necessarily safe. So we identified that in the areas that we work in, and we ended up installing a brand new service panel out there, upgrading the electrical wire to what's now code, and also installing outlets and other lighting structures that allow for a much more lit environment that is safe to operate in, as well as improve nighttime safety by installing motion sensor lights out on the property. In addition, we've been working closely with our newest program, which is the Natural Resources Program. Once under the field department, now it's a separate program. We've continued that really close alliance with this department during this time, and staff really enjoy working with David Mock and working with Aaron in getting resource projects done. It's expanded our ability to be able to do it. And Aaron really does rely upon the field staff to be able to go out and affect these projects as well. We were doing it before, and he does not have the size staff that I do. So it's a great honor to be able to help him and his team out in all of these necessaries. And we're really looking forward to Rachel even expanding that ability to do further projects. Started in the early part of fiscal year 22-23, program staff continued to transition to battery operated tools. I had mentioned in my previous update about that. We're now currently at about 70% of that. We're going to anticipate finishing the transition over to battery operated tools here in this fiscal year. And we'll have our gasoline powered as backups only. Some of the chainsaws, the larger chainsaws, they do not make a comparable model to that yet. So we are going to rely upon those saws as long as we have to. Just simply sometimes the trees are too big to be able to cut through with the much smaller battery operated saws. There have been some hiccups with the battery operated stuff, new technology. We've had a lot of battery failures that have been warrantied in. I think we had a couple of issues with the actual chainsaws themselves that were also warrantied. We kind of expect this, and it does slow us down a little bit, but it's nothing that we can't overcome simply with new technology as it comes out. Staff have been really creative. They've learned how many fuel batteries that they need to carry with them, also putting them out on fuel depots where they store batteries on trails at certain key segments so that they can just continue operating throughout the day. One of our staff also got creative and created a holster for the whip on their backpack that they carry for the battery too. So they're getting creative with how this new technology can integrate. If we didn't work for the Open Space Authority, they might be able to patent some of this stuff and make a lot of money. But with all this overall, I think staff are really excited to see the change of battery operated tools. We've had a lot of positive feedback from them on those tools. And I look forward to actually being gas free in the near future with all the tools except for the biggest of the chainsaws, which are just going to take time to affect how we can. What the problem is simply the amount of battery power that's required to operate a saw of that size when it's cutting through such a large diameter tree. So with that, I would like to conclude this presentation by acknowledging all of the many tasks that are asked of our field program staff. They truly have unique jobs here in the San Francisco Bay Area, from engaging our visitors and welcoming them to our properties, assisting visitors in finding the best routes to take while on our preserves, providing natural resource protection through verbal compliance engagements with visitors not obeying our rules, working on the lands themselves by maintaining and repairing trails, roads, fences, and other infrastructure, by maintaining vegetation to enhance our biodiversity and provide a modified fuel load to reduce the risk of wildfire, working with our grazing leases, working with our other departments within the authority to prepare and set up for authority hosted events. And these are just a small snapshot of what our field program staff do on a daily basis. They are truly generalists, and if you ask any of them, I really do believe they will answer with a huge grin that the work they perform is a labor of love and that they would not trade for anything. We often have you can see it in them. If you go out there and you interact with any of them on our preserves, when they greet the visitors, from all the conversations that they have with visitors, their love for what they do really shows through. And they really do love working for the Open Space Authority. We have an incredibly dedicated and engaged staff that truly love what they do. At this, I would open up for any questions.
Derek, and I can say I was out there at one of the preserves, taking some photos, and I had to go take the photos, and my husband's engaging one of the technicians, and they had a lovely time talking about, the stuff they work and all that, facility work and that. So yes, they do love their job. It's great. And you guys have had an incredible year. I mean, look at the amount of accomplishment we had on our 30th anniversary. So kudos to everybody on your team. I really, really appreciate the hard work.
Thank you.
Open up to my colleague, anyone want to give any comments? Yeah, Arnetta, thank you. Dr. Hannibal, thank you.
I remember when there was only one staff person.
There's three.
We didn't have any field for them to work on it.
Yep.
But it's just been a pleasure to work with you and Megan and the rest of the team. And I too have experienced field worker coming out to just say that they love it.
Mhm.
This is the perfect job for them. And so that says a lot for your abilities in hiring.
Absolutely. Right here, Elizabeth. She does a great, she's part of the team too.
But Elizabeth, you haven't been, so you two were doing it originally. So it's just really terrific to hear about all the great work you've done. It's 28 for you,
22
22 next week.
next week.
And I have to say, yeah, you got 18, something.
Yeah. Okay. What else? No. Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Might make it a little.
And I guess you're on.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll be there.
Chair, through the chair, do you want to add, there's any comment?
Are there any comments on the information line?
If any members of the public who are joining us via Zoom would like to participate, please press *9. You raise your hand.
Next, we have the award of contract to Yodel Pass for visitor management software.
All right, well, it's being loaded up here. That's the Derek Newman show here for a few more minutes here. I'll try and keep this one as brief as possible. This is a presentation for the award to contract to Yodel Pass. It's what we call a visitor management system. And what do I do? There we go. You know, why do we need this? When we think about where we've come from, Director Annabelle had mentioned, 20 years ago, we started this journey for the field department. I was one member of 3 open space technicians, seasonals, and we didn't even have an environmental education department yet. Since that time, we've really increased the number of staff that we have, but more importantly, we've increased the environmental education events that we've had, and the number of visitors coming out to our preserves, as I mentioned in the previous one, it's basically more than tripled each year, the number of people that have come out, the difference in the numbers that have come out. And this is really created in the old school days. We had spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, keeping track of who was responding to our events and going to be coming out to them. We ended up going to a system that is, what is the name of that they use? Eventbrite. Oh, and it escaped me there for a minute. We would use Eventbrite, which is not the best of forms. It doesn't keep a lot of data. It really is clunky when you're using it. And then also the protection of the natural resources. We now have the butterfly pass and habitat protection areas, and we're looking to potentially expand that in the future to other preserves where we have these areas where it's going to be sensitive, or there's something different that we need to have that. So it really became apparent that we spend a lot of staff time on the back end running these events, also doing the butterfly pass. Mark's team did an awesome job at putting something together to get the butterfly pass, but it's one of those things that we would call jury rigged. It's something that's not designed the way that it needs to be. It doesn't provide a lot of the context that we need of where people are getting the pass. And it really doesn't allow us to track what's happening out there, how many people are using it. Eventbrite gives us statistics, but it doesn't allow us to track how many people don't show up unless we do it manually, again, by having a spreadsheet. So we really realized that we are lacking in the technology that allows us to effectively manage our preserves through our educational programs, through the protection of the resources, and then just managing the amount of visitors that are coming to our preserves. So that leads us to, what does this software provide? It allows us to compile all kinds of data. It tracks the numbers of no-shows. It shows where visitors are accessing us from. So it collects visitor location data. Also, how the visitors are accessing the system. You heard me mention before how we do the QR codes. That was one of those ways that we had,
Mark's team figure out how we could do it just kind of this way. But this system will actually allow us to keep continuing to track this in many, many different ways. It also allows us to add contact information if the visitor so choose to leave that, and it plugs directly into our customer relations management software, our CRM, where it allows us to then reach out to the people. It also issues event passes. These passes come up on the phones. Our phones can then scan the QR code, and it's going to tell us that that pass is valid. It also keeps track of how many passes were used, and more importantly, how many passes aren't used. So we can come up with what we call a flake factor. And we know that, yeah, if we can absorb 60 people at an event, we have a historical flake factor of 30%. We can add that to the number of passes available so that we have full events. And we're not missing the opportunity to have that equitable ability for people to show up on the preserves. Some people are just, all our stuff is free. And there's no what we would call skin in the game by people losing $10 or $15 by not showing up. So when it's free, people have a habit of just being like, whatever. And they don't take the time to hit the unreserved button, which then doesn't allow other people to show up that would be showing up. So we want to be able to track that, know it, and be able to affect that into our system for it. It also allows us to change the number of passes available through the admin module. So again, with places like the Excel spreadsheets and Eventbrite, it was very clunky. This is just a one button stop, and we can add 15 more passes to it, and it can happen from anywhere that we do. Now that we work remote, it's just in our phones too. And whoever's running the event can just change it simply by going to their phone. Special access passes, such as the Butterfly Pass. This will allow us to create these, issue them out. It allows us to modify them as we need to so that it's very apparent when people show us the pass out on the preserve. It can be different colored, could have a different QR code for it that will allow us to tell us whether it's expired or not. And it'll also allow us to create unique ones for any number of situations that are out there. For one-off events as well, and also annually reoccurring events like public access days that we've had in the past. So where we know we're going to have a reoccurring public access day, we know it's what we call the Diablo Foothills Access Day. People can sign up for that, they get the pass, and then they can go to any public access day that we have. Also provides for the multimedia education. What I mean by this is we can tailor this software to, if we need to, such as the Butterfly Pass, show a short video that is fun and engaging, a quick 1-minute video that talks about the uniqueness of the place and why people want to protect it. So it allows us to integrate that into it, something that Eventbrite cannot do at all. And something that, again, Mark's team probably could do this, but this would be a lot of work for him. And I could see him sitting over there cringing with thinking about that kind of work that would go into this. Again, this is seamless. We create the video, we can tie it directly into the event, and it just runs right on the website. So some of the things that this can do here, I mean, it allows us to have custom branding. So when you actually log into this, it's going to look like it's an Open Space Authority website. You're also going to have sent directly to their phones, mobile devices immediately. So there's no waiting for it. There's no waiting for everything, nothing to print out. It goes directly to their phone, and then you have the QR code that allows it to it. If we want to enable it, we can have the two-factor authentication that prevents fraud. I know that's something big with our IT department. A lot of times I feel that our internal two-factor identification is actually about four-factor identification, is how many times you have to keep on logging in your phone's code as well. It also has the built-in tracking that really check-ins, scans, usage. It allows all of that. It allows us to have audit capabilities right away, transaction history, but it has on the fly as well. Visitors can share and transfer their passes to others if they're not going to be attending. So they don't have to hit unreserved. They can just say, yeah, I've already reserved it, but I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm going to go ahead and pass that on to Susie Q, who is going to be able to make it for me. So it really allows that. But more importantly than anything else, through this system and the events, we have the ability to reach out to participants directly through their interactiveness of this site. So if they have a butterfly pass and there is a special, restriction going on up on Mayano Yakima, we can automatically send it to all the pass holders that, hey, on these dates, this area is going to be closed, or on these dates, pay attention to this resource work that will be going on out there. And that goes for anything. If the event's rain canceled, we can automatically just quickly say it's been canceled. They get notified immediately. No more like scrolling through and typing in email addresses of each one individual that we have out there. So it really allows us an automation that we've never seen before and allows us to be more effective out there. On this one here, we talk about the activity reporting is available for staff using the Yodel Ranger app on their mobile devices. It basically gives us direct feedback of what's happening out there right now, how many people are currently participating in the event or not. When you think about parking management, if we tie this into parking spaces and people have reserved parking spaces, it tells us how many are available and instantly, how many people have used those spaces as they come into the preserve. So we could tie it into, Coyote Ridge, how many pieces are coming, how many people are coming in, how many people are leaving. So it's not even tied into a reservation system necessarily. We can do, the greeter can simply say, hey, let me scan your QR code. All right, we know how many people are on the preserve, how many vehicles are in the lot instantaneously. And therefore we can keep up, and we can potentially eventually modify the website to let visitors know that, hey, it's almost at capacity. Maybe you want to come back in a couple of hours, or if you haven't left yet, think about leaving a little bit later when we have a little bit more capacity in the parking lots for it. And then this is the admin module part of it. This is what we would be interfacing with. This one really gives us a lot of different data collection here. It's comprehensive. It allows the staff to understand the use patterns that are happening out there, who our messages are reaching, and through what areas our staff or messages are reaching them, what mediums are not being utilized to engage. So we can proactively look at how we can change those areas to get more response from those mediums that we're using. It uses monthly and yearly data, so we can really compare what the usage is throughout any times. And it also can tell us daily, hourly, what those usages are. So it can really tailor our staffing levels to the needs of the preserves. These are the trends that field staff really look for in being able to direct field staff out during maximum use times. So we know that, hey, between 1 and 3 o'clock, Sierra Vista is really hammered like regularly on Saturday and Sunday. So we're going to triple up staff there to help with that kind of parking management. It'll show us trends in other locations that we don't necessarily have the data for. And the opportunities for growth, we have the opportunity to grow in a lottery system. If any of you have ever used the National Park Service's reservation system, you generally will come across a point where you're using a lottery system. This is for those high use areas, high use events. We anticipate that the butterfly season over at Mayano Yakima will be one such where we could deploy this. Rather than knowing that at 8 a.m., 35 tickets go on up for availability, you have to be available at 8 a.m. to get those tickets. How many of us are not available at 8 a.m. because of our jobs, or because we're taking care of dogs, or we're traveling to work? So the lottery system, and Lee's laughing because now I have 2 dogs. I inherited 2 dogs, but it allows really for everyone to be the opportunity to be equitable in securing those spots and allowing them to come out and see it. They no longer have to put off a daily task to be able to do this. It allows us to really comprehend and manage parking management, either through reservation system in the near or far future if we need to, but also, like I had mentioned, where it's telling us how many people are coming in and out of a preserve. And even without a reservation system, just allowing us to know what the context is there. It can grow into this. And it also provides for future hardware that staff can use for any number of different reasons. Some of the things that are out there are license plate readers that we may never deploy because we don't want to keep that kind of data. But if we ever went to an area where we need that level of enforcement to ensure that people are where they're supposed to be, we could. Then that's just the technology that they have now. as the new technology becomes available, we can deploy what we need as far as the hardware goes. We can deploy handheld scanners that help us scan paper receipts and that type of stuff as well. And then all of this is predicated on the fact that everything that we're going to do with this is free to the public. There is no cost to the public to access any of these events. There's no cost to the public to get a pass or to participate in any, let's say, sponsored educational opportunity out there. It's not to say that in the future we could not add that feature to it. It is part of this if we wanted to. But the moment now is everything is free. But it does allow that future growth if that becomes necessary for any number of reasons that we would see the need for. Overall, this really does provide for staff to be more efficient and effective. It allows us to spend less time managing our systems and people and more time on in the field and or running educational opportunities and or promoting educational opportunities as well. The cost is $30,500 per month, which translates to about $42,000 a year. When you think about technology and the cost and the operational cost for this, we really do feel, staff feels that it's a value that cannot be underestimated about just how much time it frees up from us and gives us data that is critical in managing our properties into the future. So with that, I mean, our recommendation is that the board approve a contract with Yodel Pass for this software. We did review 2, Rocket Res and Yodel Pass, as were detailed in the staff report. We felt that Yodel Pass gave us out of the box what we need now and also allowed for growth. Whereas Rocket Res really didn't have everything that we wanted right now. And they were kind of coy on giving us something such as the lottery system moving forward into the future, which is something we felt we really would need to be able to be equitable in allowing people to come out to our preserves. So with that, open up to any questions.
One question, is this a static cost or do you anticipate increases in future years?
This is a static cost for the beginning, but we do anticipate that there will be increases over the years as it goes. We didn't write that into the contract per se, but as we add additional services, we would anticipate that there might be additional cost to it. And then just the cost of inflation. I'm sure that they'll come back to us at some point in futures and tell us that they want additional money.
Anybody have a question? Right ahead.
I don't recall what the estimated annual visitors we have annually. Visitors.
Yeah, so annually visitors right now over at Rancho Cañada del Oro, we're at about 60,000 per year. Over at Sierra Vista, it's over 200,000 a year. Coyote Valley was our third, which was almost approaching 100,000. We're just getting back into putting visitor counters out there to get some more quality data on that. We did get away from that for a little bit as we went through COVID and beyond. But those were the current numbers, like we estimate them to be this year coming up. And then Coyote Ridge, I mean, the butterfly season is going to be what I would consider off the hook. With now that it's open and people are going to be able to go out there Wednesday through Friday and be able to enjoy it. And then all the educational programs that we're going to be doing on Saturdays and Sundays.
We're getting a lot of people out there now.
Right now it's been slow, but it's been picking up as people use it. We have not been full yet as far as parking lot capacity goes, but it was also hot. As it cools down, we anticipate a little bit more people coming out, but as soon as it greens up, that's when we think that people are really going to go out there. It's a desert.
Is there any startup fees or is this it?
This is it, $3,500, no startup fees. They do provide training for staff. There's no cost to that. It's all part of the $3,500.
And this is basically just kind of.
This is for all events, all properties that we have. And all passes that we have in the future, habitat protection areas, it's system wide.
Take care of the maintenance and really down.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. 24/7 customer service for us to be able to reach out to them for them to fix any kind of bugs.
Yes, could you give me an idea of what you might want to implement at Sierra Vista?
At Sierra Vista, Andres and I have been talking about how we can manage the sunsets better. This would provide us potentially that avenue of doing that where people sign up for the sunset viewing automatically for it, as well as potentially parking on weekends and that to be able to track that as well. I mean, Sierra Vista is the one preserve where we would consider parking reservations early on. That's something that the data will tell us what we need and how often we need it. And maybe it's only certain times that we do have reservations required to enter and exit out of Sierra Vista. But we anticipate using it heavily up there moving into the future. The first one would be looking at how we can implement it to reduce the sunset issues that we currently have. And then from there, how we can use that lessons learned from that and apply it to Saturdays and Sundays for better management to allow people. It's not just about managing for our staff, but it's also to provide the visitors a reliable way to understand what's happening up at Sierra Vista. So this might be one of the first ones that we realize we can automate the website to be able to tell how many spaces are available through staff gathering the incoming and outgoing of vehicles up there.
Thank you.
Did they tell any kind of uptime or if the system is go bad, has any back plan or something?
They did not about that. They just were talking about 24/7 cases. They gave us references from locations here in California all the way to the East Coast. And I checked a couple of those references, all of them actually. And none of them had any significant downtime for the software. Any problems that they had were resolved within 10 to 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Maybe they're hoping to expand.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Oh, wait, are there any public comments?
If there are any members of the public who are joining us via Zoom who would like to make a comment, please press star 9 to raise your hand.
We'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve from Director Gill with a second by Director Kennett. I'll roll.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Annable, Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. I look forward to getting a report in about 6 months on how this works.
Well.
All right, the next item is award of grazing leases for the following open space authority reserve, Rancho Canada, Ianamakma, Coyote Valley Open Space Reserve. Oh my God, I'm not gonna read the whole thing. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Great. Well, Aaron Hebert, Natural Resources Manager. I'm pinch hitting for Megan here, who's a little bit under the weather. So we worked on this together. So I'll do my best. And if there are any specific questions, we can take them over to Megan. Great. So as you can tell from the agenda item and from this recommendation, a number of grazing leases are coming up. And staff is essentially recommending that these leases be entered into for a period of 5 years to 2028, except for Diablo Foothills to 2029. With the following tenants, and we'll get into the process and talk about all this, but these are the folks that we're recommending we enter these leases into. So we're going to talk a little bit, just give you a little bit of a primer on why we do grazing, what its role is, talk about which properties are included in this request for proposal process, talk about our outreach process, as well as the proposals we've received, and then finally talk about who we're recommending that these leases be awarded to. So, our grazing program serves a number of functions. First, it reduces non-native invasive plant species, which are pretty abundant in California grasslands. I mean, they're something like 98% non-native grasslands, right? Our serpentine grasslands are our big exception. And as we well know from Dr. Weiss, they provide a critical role in that habitat as well. Cows in our area also have been shown to promote the diversity and sort of health of native grasses and native forbs. And again, the serpentine grasslands are kind of the leading example of that. Cattle also have a positive effect on biodiversity by sort of managing the landscape in lieu of other ways of managing grasslands like fire or mowing or other techniques. And then a big deal in our area, of course, is actually managing fuels through grazing, particularly in our grasslands. So there's been a lot of science in the last 5 or 6 years around what's the right level of grazing for fuels management. And it's really hard to get to those target grassland levels without cattle on the ground. So they do a lot for us. We are also, of course, have agriculture as part of our mission. So they don't just do ecosystem work for us, but they actually support the local agricultural economy. So a number of properties are subject to this RFP. These leases sort of came due at the same time. So we needed to get our tenants out there, do this RFP process. So Rancho Cañada del Oro, Coyote Valley Open Space, Sierra Vista, and some specific pastures in there, Sierra Vista and another set of pastures, Diablo Foothills, and Mayana-Yakima Coyote Ridge. So a good chunk, I think the majority of district lands that have conservation grazing on them. The outreach process was a big part of this. So our RFP was circulated to, of course, all of our current grazing tenants, as well as neighboring livestock operators, folks who might potentially bid on these proposals. You see a number of names listed there. 4 resource conservation districts, some of our partner agencies who also have conservation grazing programs like MidPenn and the Valley Habitat Agency, as well as university cooperative extension staff. So really try to do our best to get it out there. I know Megan did phone calls to a number of these individuals just to sort of get the interest out there. And part of why I'm emphasizing the amount of outreach that we're doing is you'll see a lot of the tenants that are recommended, all of them, in fact, for extensions are current tenants. So one of the things that I guess I'll say about this process before we get into the specifics is that I think the grazing community is a very small community, and there is a lot of reluctance to bid against people people who have existing leases. There are probably a variety of cultural attitudes around that. So in fact, only one of the properties received competitive proposals. And after reviewing the proposals and conducting interviews, and this is at Diablo Foothills, we ended up going with the current tenant, Al Renz, who's in good standing. And I would note that the other proposal was from a prior grazer of that same property. So maybe had a desire to get back to grazing that property. So that process of sort of trying to diversify or change grazing tenants is pretty tricky within this somewhat insular community. So I'll say that, at least on the staff level, we recognize that it's usually some of the new grazing leases, like on new lands that we acquire, where we might be able to get in different tenants with maybe different kinds of approaches. But it is a pretty small world of grazing operators out there. And OSA kind of knows all of them, I would say. They're shared with many of our partner agencies, including my old agency. So familiar set of actors. Which is just to say, I think, a lot of the opportunity to reach some of our broader sort of DEI goals about what kind of tenants we have, I think are probably best met on new grazing leases, because I think you'll find that lease renewals are not especially competitive because of the hesitation of folks to bid against each other in this kind of small personal community. So at Mayana Yakima, Justin Fields has been grazing there and is recommended to continue grazing there, as well as Rancho Cañada del Oro. I knew Stu Weiss speaks very highly of Justin and his responsiveness to the kind of unique habitat needs they have out there. And these are very much trust-based relationships. So we're fortunate to have many tenants in good standing, and you'll see that as kind of a theme throughout this recommendation. Alan Renz or Agco Hay, Renz family continuing their lease recommended for extension at Diablo Foothills, as well as Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve. Clayton Koopman out at Sierra Vista in these sort of northern pastures. Mike Miller, not pictured, but at the Vilas and Aoki pastures. So again, in summary, we recommend the following leases with 5-year terms. There's also a 5-year option on those terms should the Open Space Authority decide to extend them later to 2028, and then for Diablo Foothills to 2029. That's Justin at Rancho, Mike Miller at Sierra Vista, Clayton Koopman at Sierra Vista, Alan Renz at Coyote Valley, Justin Fields at Mayana Yakima, and Alan Renz at Diablo Foothills Preserve. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
Yes. And
What are we using as tools to monitor the grass levels so that the property is not overgrazed?
You're asking the right guy. So we use a couple of different tools. The main thing that we do is my direct report to David each fall. So September, generally speaking, he goes out and collects what are called residual dry matter data points. And those RDM levels are really just how much grass is left after the grazing season happens. So all of these properties have grazing management plans, which were put together a while ago, and they kind of establish these target, sort of residual grass level thresholds. This year, we are also starting to implement a tool that sort of correlates this on the ground data with actual satellite data, which is like infrared stuff that looks at vegetation growth. And we use this to kind of put together a pretty dense map of how much grass is out there. I will say a little bit of training, you kind of know what overgrazing and undergrazing looks like just from hiking around. This is kind of the science behind it, but in terms of managing our tenants, you can kind of see it on the ground too. It's not rocket science by any means, but we do this annual data gathering. Right now is report writing season. This is also the time when the tenants are sort of buying and selling cows. So we do our best this time of year to relay that information. And it's usually pretty pasture specific. And then we're also kind of just starting raining season. So this is that dialogue between us as land managers and tenants where you say, okay, a little overgrazing, a little undergrazing, what are your plans next year? And then we try to set these sort of animal unit months, which is really just how many cows on the land per month.
And do you have and later in the year that you look at all this again before September? Or is it okay in September?
Yeah, so you're right that generally it's an annual process we do from a lease management standpoint. That doesn't stop us from looking, say, in the spring or summer on how things are going. What we don't know right now is how much it's going to rain and how much growth you're going to get. So the operators have to be pretty dynamic in terms of how much cattle they're putting out on the land, because it is a bit of a gamble both for their business and from the sort of habitat management standpoint. So I'll say for this year, even though it rained quite a bit this year, many of our ranchers actually had trouble buying enough cattle to put on the land. So you might see a little less grazing than you might sort of ideally want. So that's the kind of feedback system we have.
Does our leases include fencement and we got that?
Derek, you want to take that?
So currently, the grazing tenants do have the ability to do large scale projects as rent credit out on the properties. We do allow some of that goes on. They are required to do basic fence repair, but as far as like wholesale boundary fence repairs and that type of stuff, generally that is encumbered upon us. as far as the property owner to do those types of repairs. They do repairs, we do replacements more than anything else. They're also very responsive to when a vehicle goes through the fence. Our staff might just quickly repair it to keep the cattle in, but they'll come out and do the final repair of the fence line as well.
And our leases increased over the last time it's. Leases were like.
You talking about the rate or, I don't believe so, right? They're,
The fees are established each year and it's based off of the animal weights from the previous year and the amount of money that they can get per cattle, and it doesn't go up higher than 10% each year. So they can, basically it's either 10% higher, no more than that, or it goes lower. It's based off of the meat cattle prices. It's a bit of a tricky configuration. But it's May through July for all of the cattle in California from weights from 500 through 900 pounds. And that establishes a number, and then that establishes our rental animal unit month rate.
So what was our income last year from?
AUM rate is on 1460, but I don't know.
yeah, I think we'd have to look, do the calculation and get that back to you if that's all right.
Is it like wouldn't be part of our financial statements? Or we just, or we find it as a separate.
Yeah, we can get that number for you.
No. Okay. Is there any public comment? Okay, great. All right, so this is an action item, so I think we need a motion.
Motion to approve recommendations by staff.
Unless you didn't read the whole. Little levity in my. Okay, so we have a motion from Director Flaher and a second.
I second.
All right, Director Alexander.
Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Annabelle,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
All right, the motion to approve grazing leases passes unanimously. Thank you for that very interesting, you learn something new every meeting. All right. The next item is the approval of proposed amendments to the Open Space Authority's Enabling Act and to authorize staff to proceed with associated legislative process. Mark Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, directors. Mark Landgraf, External Affairs Manager. This item seeks approval for proposed amendments to the Open Space Authority's Enabling Act and authorization for staff to proceed with the associated legislative process. There we go. All right, so I have one slide. I will go through that, and most of the information is in your packet, but I do want to review it at a high level. So just as context here, from time to time, staff reviews the Enabling Act and adjusts the Enabling Act language to bring it up to speed with what other open space districts are doing, and especially just to make our work as effective as we can through what the Enabling Act authorizes us to do. So you see in your staff report the information about prior amendments and also the proposal for future amendments. And these are really to bring us up to speed with what other open space districts have already in their enabling, in their language. As I believe you know, the Open Space Authority's Enabling Act is within the California Public Resources Code, but in a different section than other open space districts like Mid-Penn and East Bay Parks. They're also in the Public Resources Code, but a completely different section. So the proposed amendments here, the suite of amendments we are bringing forward are those that would bring us up to speed with other open space districts. I want to mention here that these are proposals. I would very much invite feedback on these. And then I'll describe the process at the end of reviewing briefly here the various amendments, and then we'll seek that approval. So the first item is regarding board compensation. Currently, it's set at $75 per meeting, and to bring us up to speed to other agencies, that would rise to $100 per meeting, with the ability for the board annually to adjust that via the water code. So that's the same code that other open space districts use to consider those annual adjustments. The second item is land protection in the Diablo range. So currently, our Enabling Act limits us to only accepting gifts of land in fee and purchasing conservation easements in the Diablo range east of Coyote Ridge. So as it's described in the language, it's east of the westernmost ridge, that's Coyote Ridge. So right now we can't buy property in fee east of Coyote Ridge. And that's very different than what we can do in the rest of our jurisdiction. And given our work on 30 by 30 protection of habitat, biodiversity lands, and especially wildlife connectivity, it would, and also our partnership with Save Mount Diablo that they presented to your board not long ago. We would like to have the ability to also be able to purchase lands in fee east of Coyote Ridge to satisfy those purposes. The third item is the expenditure authority for the general manager. Currently, that's at $25,000, and the proposed amendment would increase that to $50,000. That's in line with other open space districts, what they currently allow expenditures. That just means that expenditures up to $50,000 do not need explicit board approval. It makes the process more efficient, and as costs go up, that's still a pretty modest amount to have approval for. The fourth item is making crystal clear in our Enabling Act that we can create community facilities districts as other open space districts are able to do. So those could be defined in a certain geography for a specific service provided to the residents within that district. It just gives us another avenue to pursue funding specific to a certain area that might be adjacent to, say, a new open space preserve or a new property acquisition. So those are the four proposed amendments. The process that's referred to in the recommendation about a legislative process, that would entail, if approval is provided by your board tonight, it would entail seeking an author in the California State Legislature, securing that authorship, and then working with their office in the 2024 legislative session to pursue these amendments. And then they would, if everything went as planned and the legislation passed and was signed by the governor, then the amendments would become effective January 1st of 2025. So that's the process. And then the staff recommendation is for approval of the proposed amendments and authorization for staff to conduct the legislative process. But as I said, I would seek any feedback or suggestions that you have on these proposals. Thank you. And with that, I'll leave it to any suggestions or questions.
Was looking through some of the original documents calling for the creation of the Open Space Authority, and the Community Facilities District was mentioned as a tool that could be, that we should be looking at as a community to create the open space. Would you financial? So I'm definitely will be supporting number 2, number 3, and number 4. The recommendations.
Did I wake you up?
No. I didn't have my life.
Would you like to speak, Director Plummer? Yeah. You have a question?
Not required.
Okay, so I, this is one of those things where you're voting on your own compensation, so, I'm kind of putting it to the board if you feel comfortable with this. I mean, going from $25 increase is not a lot. I don't think we do this job for the money. I think, we do it because we love the work and we love interacting and we love creating legacy. So, does anybody have any special feelings about number 1? Because I noticed Miss Director Animal omitted that one from her.
I'll make a motion instead.
You're where I was going with this, right?
I'd like to make a motion that we would proceed with amendment 2, 3, and 4.
You strike number 1.
I wouldn't know what to do with all this. It is volunteer.
I think that's kind of thing. It's very kind of you to do that, but I think, it's not why we're here. So just a clarification, so this, if you would get a legislator to carry the bill, and then it would have to go through the normal process next year as part of the legislature, where the House and, the both sides have to hear it and appropriations and all that stuff or not. How does that work?
That's right. So we start with seeking an author. That would happen this calendar year, and hopefully we could secure an author. It could be, just as an example, Senator Cortese, or it could be Assemblymember Kalra or Assemblymember Pellerin, just as examples of those that overlap with our district. Once an author is secured and they support what we do, they are good with the amendments that we're proposing, then we would work with their office to develop language that we would then submit to Legislative Council early in the new year. We'd get as we work out initial language, we get a bill number. And then, yes, we go through the House of Origin, through the committees that are assigned for this legislation. And then if it gets approval in the House of Origin, then it goes to the other house, and then through the legislative process by end of the session in September, and then it goes to the governor for signature.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have a motion to approve striking amendment number 1.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Director Kenneth, did you second the motion?
I will.
Okay, so I don't think we have a second yet, and
Sure.
don't forget the public comment.
Yes.
And on the compensation issue, I take full responsibility for that, so. Because every time amendments come up before the board, question is always asked of me, can we change our compensation? So I put it there, and it's been asked before, but I think it's fine not to do it. It's just I wanted to make sure that you had the option to do so, instead of on the back end when questions asked and then not having it in front of you. So,
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second, and is there any public comment? No. Yes, I think that is no public comment. Okay. Great.
correct? Oh, wait, it was moved by Director Kennedy.
No,
Now it's moved by Director Annabelle, second by Director King. You? Okay, all right.
The motion is to approve amendments 2 through 4.
What do you mean?
yeah, so the numbers, not the specifics.
Two.
What do we also need to say? Amendments to the-
Everybody keep your fingers off the button.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Well, just so I make sure we'll read this into the record. So we have a motion to approve the amendments 2 through 4 of the enabling act as proposed by staff. Direct staff to seek an author to sponsor the legislation to become effective on January 1st, 2025.
To approve as amended.
Well, we have, yes, okay, yes. I have it moved by Director Animal. I'm just repeating it with a second by Director Ken. Yeah. Okay. All right, now we're ready to call roll.
Director Kennedy,
Yes.
Director Flaher,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Yes.
Director Annabelle. Yes. Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
That motion passes. So we look forward to following this.
I will make sure to give regular updates on its progress.
All right, the next item is the committee meeting summary for use and management, and who will be taking this one? Good luck, point you.
Well.
You may lead this item during.
You are on the same trip as me. I have another agenda item.
Need one more update. Do you have an update on the use management committee?
Oh,
Yes.
I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You discussed basically the purpose and and future use of the use of management committee, including a potential change in name. And just kind of redefining and rebooting. No hard conclusions, but lots of discussion. So I think it'll come to us as a board probably next month. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Now we're on informational reports. General manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I might, I'll start with the department managers. Matt, you want to start?
Good evening, directors. Got two pretty exciting updates from our urban grant program. On Tuesday, there was a ribbon cutting at Marin Post Park. You might remember this is the Havana Midfield site. This was one of the Open Space Authority's first large grants, $250,000 to Lumina. I think that award was made in 2016. There were lots of drama associated with that, lots of issues around site control. We had amended the agreement more than a few times to the great thanks and appreciation of the community. Mike Potter attended, spoke great words, got great feedback. Huge kudos to the Open Space Authority from Luna. John Citarelli acknowledged the Open Space Authority well and said that that initial $250,000 pledge really kind of kept the gravity around the project and was instrumental in attracting the rest of the funding. So just a huge appreciation to the Open Space Authority for sticking with that investment. And then related, we completed a survey of all of the grantees from the latest cycle. Got great feedback about the program. Got a few additional recommendations for changes to the guidelines. Jackie and Megan will bring those recommendations forward, as well as all the rest of the survey results, to both the CAC and they'll come to you more in the future with that as they're recommending guidelines for the future program. That's what I have.
Thanks, Matt. Lee, is there anything? Okay, Mark?
Yeah, good evening again, directors. Wanted to update you that we have been working through our consultants in Sacramento to set up a listening session for, or with, I would say, Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia, who is the author of AB 1567, the Climate Resources Bond Measure that went through the legislature this past year. Did not make it all the way through the legislature, but it will continue into next year. And hopefully, if it gets a governor's signature, would be on the November 2024 ballot. And so he's been holding listening sessions throughout the state of California to hear what stakeholders in a certain region have to say about the bond, what they think is important to have included. And so we are going to be co-hosting a listening session in Coyote Valley on February 2nd. We just this week confirmed a date, February 2nd, 2024. And we are doing that in partnership with the offices of Assemblymember Culver and Assemblymember Bellerin. They're going to be co-hosting. And the Peninsula Open Space Trust will also be an important partner here. We're going to gather additional partners as we move this process forward. And we'll also keep you up to date, of course, on what all is going on. But it's a really exciting opportunity where we can talk about, the multi-benefit landscape in Coyote Valley and how crucial a bond measure would be to continuing the important work that we're doing to serve the public.
Thanks, Mark. Derek or Aaron, anything additional to report?
I'll report out that we just completed our annual residual dry matter monitoring and are working up the data. We'll take credit for some of planning's work. We just had a really wonderful agricultural roundtable in this room with a number of farmers, food system experts in Santa Clara Valley, including many of our staff. So that's part of the CV CAN process, and we're looking forward to continuing those conversations. On that note, we've also received literally several hundred pages of existing conditions reports from our CV CAN consultants. So we're getting feedback to them, but they're doing lots of work, which is always a pleasure to see as we proceed into sort of this visioning phase of what we're going to be doing out there. Matt and I attended the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network, which is a convening of land managers in the region. Lots of big themes, biodiversity, public access, fire, I would say is kind of the perennial one in that venue. Natural resources staff have also been meeting with Valley Habitat Agency staff on our sort of mutual management of Mayana Yakima, covering things like grazing, invasive species, and pond management work. And then just this Tuesday, Nick Perry and I, Coyote Valley project manager, attended a wildlife conservation board funding tour with Caltrans Post, some of our other partners, looking at the wildlife feasibility studies at Monterey Road and Highway 101. So crawling around some culverts, talking about biodiversity, hoping to get money. Looks like it's all on track.
Thanks, Aaron. Hey, I might ask you to just write up a couple sentences for the benefit of Director Kennett on the agricultural roundtable that we had here. That might be a great report out for the next meeting of the Farm Bureau, which Director Kennett attends. Thanks.
Can do.
Last thing I'll just report out on is Mark Landgraf and I attended a really interesting conference this past week on Tuesday and Wednesday that we wanted to report out on. That was the inaugural conference called Bloom 23. And it was a gathering of the private sector, corporations from around the country and even global corporations coming to the San Jose Convention Center to talk about investments in nature. There's a growing realization that as companies have to comply with climate rules and climate disclosures for the impact they're having in their worldwide operations and their supply chains, that the next step, and they can see it on the horizon, is going to be disclosures and requirements to report on the impacts that corporations are having on nature. And implicit in the conversation this week was that nature is 30% of the climate solution. And over 50% of global GDP requires and relies on nature. So there's going to be tremendous private resources mobilized in the coming years to protect and restore nature across the globe and here in California. And so Mark and I attended this to try and understand where the conversation's going, why corporations would invest in nature, what they see happening in the future. And one of those things is there's a tacit recognition that, like climate credits, there will be a market for biodiversity credits in the future. So we met a lot of people there, very interesting people. We were one of the few public land conservation professionals that were there, but we plan to share this information, what we learned, with our colleagues. And we met today. We're already starting to talk about what this could look like, starting a pilot of sorts here in the South Bay, a partnership with tech companies in the private sector. Imagine the uplift that could happen in biodiversity on the considerable public lands that have been conserved. Public land conservation agencies like ours have modest revenues. We apply for grants. We cheer when we get a $200,000 grant from the state, or maybe a grant from a foundation like the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. But those monies are a fraction of the finance that will flow toward nature in coming years. And we want to be on the leading edge of that, those revenues coming through. There's a lot of reasons why corporations would invest in nature. They're not always the same reasons we invest in nature, but we're excited about this potential direction. Mark, do you want to add anything?
Really good summary. I don't have much to add, but just as we reach out to corporations, especially in the technology industry, to partner with them on what the general manager was describing, we've got to talk the lingo. And the words and phrases that were used at the conference were often very different than what we're used to. So it was really helpful to understand how they talk about being nature positive rather than nature negative. For instance, this means that a corporation would have more positive impact on nature than it would have a negative impact. That's what nature positive refers to, which makes sense, right? And that's a great goal for them to have, but we wouldn't know what that terminology means if we're not part of the conversation. So just being there and being in some of those conversations was super helpful.
And question, did you get anything why they are just investing on the nature lands, the technology companies? Any reason for that?
Well, the main reason is, as the climate changes, there are going to be worldwide disruptions in supply chain, which we're already seeing. The customers of corporations are increasingly younger people who believe in protecting the planet for future generations. There are regulations coming that corporations will have to comply with. There's reputational risk. There's risk to companies' products, and again, reputation if they're not early adopters of protecting nature.
And in many cases, employees of large corporations are demanding that they do more to protect nature. So yeah, for all those reasons combined.
Plus the tax consequences.
Yeah, I mean, we learned whole new acronyms that we have never heard before. about science-based nature targets, frameworks for nature related disclosures. All of these things are coming at companies, and you know, some of the major talks were given by Deloitte and Touche, auditors that are getting ready to, they're already doing it, auditing companies and helping them ready themselves to respond to a new regulatory environment. So anyway, we think we have some pretty major biological assets here in the South Bay that could, you know, potentially be pilot projects for developing frameworks in advance of when biodiversity credits are ready. But let's not wait for that. So we plan to start talking to some people, getting our talking points together, and maybe talking to some consultants who are already working in this space to help us, you know, reverse engineer what corporations want to see and how an agency like ours can we can help achieve mutual goals. Yeah.
I subscribe to something called MarketWatch.com. Have you heard of them? Keep an eye on it. There's more and more stuff coming through. And almost daily. It's all about the bottom. Well, again, in their language, it's all about the bottom line. But if we can contribute to the bottom line in our favor, why not?
Maybe making surprise faces because today at City Council, they had a study session on the cost of residential and commercial development and how things are slowing down. You probably saw a recent Spotlight article, and it is having an impact. I think we've had some conversations because there's two sources of funding for City of San Jose. One is developer in lieu fees, and the other one is construction conveyance tax. And it's looking pretty grim that the construction conveyance tax is going to come in low, which is going to impact capital projects for parks, which is then going to trickle down. So when you talk about Mariposa Park, that's something that's, you know, they're combining with their lieu fees plus ours. Those monies are not coming in. It's going to put more pressure on us. So I think it's important to probably convey that to some of the powers that, you know, at least, you know, environmental services, and that this kind of conversation is taking place on a larger level, because I think they're still behind where they're talking about, gosh, do we cut park fees in order to make residential development pencil out more? What was helpful is that there's a group that we've been participating with over a few months because we're anticipating that we need advocates to step up and say, hey, stop, you know, no more cuts. And advocates did stand up today. So there were some comments, and I think you may want to listen to some of the public comments. And there was a certain council member that you may want to reach out to, Councilmember Ortiz, that was very strong in saying no. So I think it's, you know, because we hope, because I've seen this happen numerous times. It's not the first time they've had this study session. Not the first time developers come forward and say, hey, you know, give us more. And so I think there's kind of a push and pull based on the dialogue you're having and what I'm seeing play out in real life.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That completes our staff presentation.
Legal counsel.
No report, Madam Chair.
Yeah. All right. Board member reports. All right. So we start with Director Kennett. You went somewhere this week.
Why don't you do that part? I'm gonna go to the podium and get ready for our photo. None of you in the room are.
Okay. Well then.
How's about that trip?
Okay, all right, so I will give my board member report while he's going to the podium. So we had a very exciting tour. Aaron was there of the Anderson Dam, and we got to go and take a look at fascinating work that's taking place. I'm learning how, you know, they're draining the dam and building a tunnel. I think there's what we're told we couldn't share the pictures on social media because we want to make sure that everybody was compliant with OSHA. So that was fascinating. The other thing is both Director Alexander and Director Alba, we attended the Conservation League of Voters award, where, former director, Paul got an award, Lifetime Achievement Award. And the, Community Day, I did my annual one, so. What field trips recently? That's my report. Yep, because I don't know what's going on.
Okay, well, is this on?
Yeah.
I had one thing, one of the concerns that was expressed to me, it's kind of outside our thing, and the reason they didn't want the pictures out. There are issues about security of that process with all that's going on in the world. Imagine what would happen that dam came down prematurely. And they're concerned about it. Wouldn't tell me why. He would tell me some of the people that are monitoring it includes the FBI, CIA, and NSA. It's that serious. So, Madam General Manager, if you join me here.
You don't know about this either.
Anybody else want to go first?
Somebody got a camera? Everybody has a camera. So, as you may all know, that our esteemed general manager was named the Friend of Agriculture from the Farm Bureau. And when I was at the last Farm Bureau meeting, a couple of the awards were not available for her presentation. And it's called ironically, the Linda L. Lester Friend of Agriculture Award. So there's two left here, and this one is from the city of Santa Clara. So here you are. You are you've been awarded by the City Council of Santa Clara. Not sure why, but there they are. I guess they eat. And this one is from Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. So there. Congratulations. That should complete your portfolio. Yeah.
Nice, thank you.
Maybe the city of Santa Clara, they have their agri-hood.
Oh, yeah, that's an exciting project. I have a friend that's living there and he sends me pictures of, the produce that's coming from that, so. Right. That conclude our presentation portion of the announcements. All right, Director Flauer, do you have an update?
Yes, yesterday I attended Valley Water's Water Commission. This meeting was mostly about all their different programs, how they work on different projects, cooperate together, and more about the structure of the organization and who does what. So that was all well and good. More interesting thing was on the issue of water security. Not quite what you were talking about, water security, but water security and potential of what rainfall we may be expecting, which is, as they said, we're expecting another warm, wet winter. So we could see rainfalls like we've seen last year. So that would
Director Ann.
I don't have a report, but I'm going to be away. So the alternate, I believe it's Dr. Gill for the CAC meeting on November 27th.
You're going to a meeting, Director Gill.
And then I'm still confused about our board meeting. It says it's on the 9th. Okay, it's not the 16th.
And Director Alexander.
Yes, I wanted to commend the staff on a very well organized community day. It was lovely. And I also really love the new trail. It's so much nicer than the road. So after it's great. And I have now talked to various people I know in the hiking community who have been out there, and they're all really nice trails. So I wanted to pass that along. And it was also wonderful to go and recognize Virginia at the League of Conservation Voters, her Lifetime Achievement Award. There were other awards too, but that was it just such a big smile on her face. It was wonderful.
Director Gill.
I don't have any report, but I definitely attended the CAC meeting.
All right. Okay, so with that, our next meeting is November 9th, and we are adjourned.